So you ready to begin?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Today, Liam Burbridge joins me, an England amputee international, plays for Everton. He's won the Nations League, played in a World Cup, and so many more. Liam, I welcome you to the show.
Thank you for having me, Jamie.
No problem. Your career is really, really special. We just spoke about it. You've only been in the sport now for about 3 years, the amputee game. You are growing up a Liverpool fan, but now you do play for the Merseyside rivals. So go ahead and tell us then what it was like growing up in your background with Liverpool being so big.
Growing up really was, so I'm not actually from Liverpool. I'm from a little town just outside of Liverpool, St Helens. So we come under Merseyside Borough, but I'm not actually from Liverpool. But it's like my closest big team. Do you know what I mean? And where I live in St Helens, because we're stuck in between Liverpool and Manchester, people are usually either Liverpool fans or United fans, and I ended up being a Liverpool fan.
The better choice, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
And then who was it then that got you into football? Because at this time you didn't have any amputations. So at this time you were growing up with normal football, 11-a-side, able-bodied football. Is that what you grew up playing?
Yeah, I played sport all my life, really. Sport was a massive part of my life, and another big sport in St Helens where I'm from is rugby league. I'm not sure if you're aware of rugby league, but it's a massive sport in the north of England and in other countries as well, like Australia and New Zealand. But rugby league isn't as popular as football, but in my hometown it is. So I grew up playing rugby, naturally gravitated towards team sports, and as I went into high school, I ended up playing football, and you get hurt a lot less playing football than you do rugby. So I ended up playing football, a lot more. But when I was growing up, it was players like Steven Gerrard and Jamie Carragher, who was in the prime and stuff. And I always remember, like, every time I kicked the ball playing out with my mates, it was Gerrard when I shot and stuff. So that's kind of like what got me into football, because I've experimented with all sorts of sports, individual sports, but team sports are my favourite.
What would that be? Do you like the team atmosphere? Do you like the communication side of it? What makes you, on like a stereotypical basis, why would you rather play a team sport than an individual sport?
I think I get bored very easily. Do you know what I mean? So even now, like, there's an element of individual training that we have to do for the England national team, because there's only so many times a year we meet. So there's a level of expectation where you have to do your own training and stuff. And although I do it, training on my own isn't like one of my favourite things. I think I enjoy that camaraderie of meeting new people and with your teammates and stuff. And I think it is a mix of communication, having people to help you out as well. In an individual sport, it can be really tough if, like, you're struggling, you're in things aren't going your way. Whereas in a team sport, you can drag each other around, can't you? And if your mate's having a bad game, you can help him out, or vice versa.
Did you grow up playing grassroots football?
Yeah, I played from, like I said, from I was about 7 years old. I played rugby league up until I was about 12, and then I played grassroots football, school, college, Sunday league, and I played Sunday league right up until my accident when I was 20.
So let's talk about the accident then. So you were 20 years old at the time. You're playing Sunday League football. Actually, let's talk about that time playing Sunday League, because for a lot of teams now, especially where I am in Hertfordshire, it's changed a lot, where you're now going to have 16, 17, 18-year-olds playing in Sunday League purely because there's not enough teams to be able to do enough divisions. Was that similar to you, or was there just age categories?
Yeah, there was age categories, but I always played up a year in most things I did, even when I was at school. And I'm always honest, and I always say to everyone that, I had aspirations of becoming a professional sports person, but it was very unlikely. It wasn't really on the cards. I wasn't playing football at any crazy high level or anything like that. But even to this day, I still back myself, and I always think I've been quite a naturally sporty type of person. Do you know what I mean? So I have played in years above and stuff, but they did try to categorise the ages. But once you reached about 16, 17, it was kind of like open age then, which sometimes I look at some 16-year-olds now and think you still got a lot of growing up to do. Do you know what I mean? But for them to play in open age is massive for them.
Yeah, definitely. And I do feel sorry for those people who maybe haven't got their growth spurts just yet.
Yeah.
And they do struggle with the physicality side, because that's what it is. because obviously you've experienced the men's side of the game, the big lads playing football on a Sunday league pitch, even with playing abroad with the England national team. You understand that the physicality is such a big difference.
Yeah, that's one of the massive things I've learned since, playing for England and stuff like that is you reach a level where within your league system in your country you become quite comfortable, and I'm not going to say it becomes easy because sport is never easy, but you become so much used to it. And then that was one of the things I remember when my debut tournament was the 2022 World Cup, and the first time I came on it wasn't the first time I came on, but the first time I noticed it was against Argentina. And although this is a disability sport and we've all got disabilities, the physicality of it was so much different. And I'm not sure if it was intimidating, but the physicality was definitely there, even off the ball, giving you little nudges and things like that. Whereas in your league system at home, it's different world.
Yeah, definitely. And just for those people who maybe haven't had a deep dive into the amputee game just yet, let me just say I've interviewed Thomas Atkinson and Scott Rogers, and now, of course, Liam Burbridge. Let me just say there's absolutely no difference. It's sensational. The way that these players move their feet, their skills, their speed, everything. I can't understand how people don't watch this game more. Seriously, it's a brilliant sport for sure. So let's talk about the accident then that you had. As we said, you weren't born an amputee, unlike Thomas Atkinson, who was. You lost your left leg in a motorbike accident. So could you please go ahead and talk to us what happened?
Yeah, so I didn't have any health conditions or anything at all. I grew up like pretty carefree, really. Do you know what I mean? I had quite a regular childhood, whatever that may be. But yeah, I was 20 years old and I had a motorbike which I used to commute to and from work. And I was just on my way to work one day, and as I've gone round a corner, a car's come round the other side, and unfortunately we've gone head on into each other. But I'd come off my motorbike loads of times before. If you speak to bikers, it's quite a common thing, really, falling off your motorbike. Do you know what I mean? But this time I just knew something was seriously wrong, and I knew that like this time was it, sort of thing. Do you know what I mean? And they tried everything they could to try and save my leg. And I developed what's called compartment syndrome in the bottom half of my leg, and all the muscle was dying. So every couple of days, they was cutting away the dead muscle and then covering it up and then checking on it to see if that the muscle would start healing. And unfortunately, it just didn't start healing. So after the 12th operation on my leg, we opted for an amputation. And I know it's like sounds really cliche and stuff, but I think I'm in quite a lucky position, really, because I've met people who have got broken legs, broken arms, such a thing, and they've never healed, and they're in a much worse position than I am now, sort of thing. Do you know what I mean? So I do wear a prosthetic leg, and when I'm using my leg, I'm quite mobile. If I had pants on, you probably wouldn't notice, and it's only when I take my leg off that I am more disabled. Do you know what I mean? But things like amputee football, there was many years where I wouldn't really use crutches if my leg was sore, because your prosthetic can really hurt you. So, there are times when you can't use your prosthetic, and when these times would happen, I would just sit in my house and do nothing. Do you know what I mean? Whereas amputee football, the international rules are you play on crutches. It's given me that confidence for when life is difficult and I'm struggling with my disability. Now I just pot around on my crutches like normal. Do you know what I mean? So amputee football's given me a new lease of life in many ways, and I could sit here for hours and couldn't do justice how much this sport's changed my life.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. Was there a difference then? Obviously, you had to get used to having no left leg. So what was that like to adjust your kind of whole life around this new disability, if you like?
It was really difficult, and like I said, by saying it's the worst thing that's ever happened to me is doing it in injustice. Do you know what I mean? Because, like I said, I was 20 years old and didn't have a care in the world. I was just enjoying life, sort of thing. Do you know what I mean? And then all of a sudden, one day, my life completely changed, and I've always been positive from the beginning. And I always took it as I was thankful to be alive, rather than letting it get to me that I'd lost my leg. I thought, well, at least I've lost my leg, but I've not lost my life. Do you know what I mean? And I always put that at the forefront of my mind, that like I was just quite happy to be alive. And it was a massive learning period, and in in a way, it still is today. Do you know what I mean? Because you encounter situations where you've not encountered before, and it's all a learning on the job sort of thing. Do you know what I mean? But I'd say it was the biggest change that I probably will ever go through. Do you know what I mean?
Definitely. So now, so your adjustment into from able-bodied football into the amputee game, the first major tournament you had was the World Cup. In
Yeah.
those few years since the accident, what did you focus your mind towards to either take it off? You're upset that the incident that happened, your first tournament. How did you get into this whole setup of amputee football?
Well, there was lots of years that went by where I didn't know about amputee football and I didn't play it. So I was 20 when I lost my leg, and I only found out about amputee football when I was 28. So there was an 8-year period in my life where I'd gone from being this sporty, active lad to not really doing much. And as I said, I was positive from the beginning, and I set myself little goals along the way. So, like, my accident happened when I was 20. So, for my 21st birthday, I went skydiving. A year later, I went and did a 10K run for charity in my hometown, St. Helens. I did set myself little goals, and I tried to stay as active as I could and stuff. But it wasn't until we went into lockdown, and I started posting on a TikTok account, and I was just playing football in my back garden and stuff. And then a player who plays for Everton in England, who's now my friend, Jamie McCreedy, he just sent me a message and was like, why don't you come and try amputee football with us? Because at this time, I was playing football with my prosthetic leg on, because I thought to myself, I want to start playing football again, but I didn't know about amputee football. So anyway, when Jamie told me about amputee football, I went down to an Everton training session, and I remember it like it was yesterday. And I was on my leg, and the rest of the players was all on the crutches. And I was about to start playing on my leg, and then they said to me that the rules of amputee football are that you have to use crutches, and if you wanted to progress to play for England and stuff like that, you would have to use crutches. So from that session on, I stopped playing on my leg, and I just 100% started playing on crutches. And I promised myself that I want to be selected for England, you know what I mean? And I'm going to try my best to be selected for England. But if I'm not good enough, then I can turn around and say at least I tried. But at 28 years old, I saw this opportunity to represent my country and thought, I don't want to turn around when I'm 40 and 50 and think, oh, I wish I'd have tried that. You know what I mean? So I literally put me everything into it straight away.
So the minute you kind of got into that whole Everton setup, but let me just tell everyone, Everton, Portsmouth, they're the really good clubs, and you're going to
Yeah.
Turkey and Poland. They do stuff really well with the amputee game, so obviously credit to them. What was that like then? The minute you kind of got into that session, you just thought to yourself, England, here I come. Is that what it was like?
Yeah, like I say, it wasn't kind of like England here I come, as in the sense of, at that moment I knew I was going to play for England, but it was kind of like England here I come in a sense of I'd got myself a new goal. And as I mentioned, when I first lost my leg, I did try lots of different things, but it was kind of like I'd tick a box and move on to the next thing. Do you know what I mean? Whereas this was like a long-term goal that I could set out for myself, that even when I accomplished the goal. So like I've played for England now. I've got caps for my country and stuff. It's still not a box ticked. Do you know what I mean? Because there's still more to achieve. Like, even though a lot of people have asked me like, what's next, and I always say it's a continuation of what I'm doing now to try and progress my own journey within the national team. Do you know what I mean?
Let's talk about the World Cup then. 2022. Was this Scott Rogers' first tournament, or was it the one after?
No, so Scott Rogers was head of technical at this time.
Yeah.
I think it was his second tournament. I think he went to the Euros in 2021. It should have been 2020 Euros, but because of COVID,
Yeah.
it got postponed a year. So I think Scott Rogers' first tournament was Euro 2021. And
Okay.
then my first tournament, World Cup 2022, was also with Scott Rogers. But as I say, he was head of technical. He only took over as the head coach in January 23.
Yes, and we'll obviously talk about that and with the tournaments that you've won with
Yeah.
him. So 2022 World Cup, what was that feeling like? Only a few years after COVID, of course. You've travelled, to what country was it? I couldn't quite find where it was.
Istanbul in Turkey it was.
That was it, yes. So and obviously, as we just mentioned, Turkey's really good with the amputee game.
Yeah.
What's that like to go ahead and travel across Europe to go and represent your country? That is phenomenal.
Yeah, it was, it was a massive eye opener because, in England we just play on an AstroTurf and the only people who come and watch us really are friends and family, do you know what I mean? And, over there, like the opening game was in Fenerbahce's stadium, the semi-finals was in Besiktas and the final was at the NEF stadium, Galatasaray stadium. So, to see fans in stadiums supporting amputee football like that, like it was literally an eye opener, but not only to that side of the game, but as I previously mentioned about like the physicality and the level that this sport can reach. It was, I was just like, wow, I almost couldn't believe it was there.
Absolutely. But the call up, you had a call up to the England
Yeah.
national team. Did you expect it so soon?
No, so at the time, I was in the development squad for the national team, so almost like the reserves, you know what I mean? And we'd had meetings previously and I was being like called up and asked to train with the first team and stuff, but I knew all along that I wasn't going to the World Cup, and that was made quite clear to me by Owen Coyle, who was the head coach at the time. He and I appreciated that because I knew I was so early on in my journey that I wasn't really ready to go and play in the World Cup, do you know what I mean? But literally 2 weeks before we went, I got a phone call and he was like, how would you like to come to the World Cup with us? And I literally couldn't believe it because I always believed in myself that it would happen at some point, but so soon I didn't realise it would happen.
And the feelings that were going through you at that time must have been somewhat crazy, right?
Yeah, definitely. Like, it's the cliche of like, like I'm a really emotional person anyway, me, but like I was crying with pride and stuff, do you know what I mean? Because these are the dreams, like I said, these are the dreams that I had growing up as a kid. So to go through what I've gone through and still achieve more than I was achieving in the first place, like it's incredible, really.
4 matches at the World Cup. Obviously, you didn't win it. You didn't come too close to maybe what the expectations were. But you lost to Angola, and we're going to talk about the whole journey. The first game, you lost 1-0 to the USA.
Yeah.
What was that like over that period?
Yeah. So Angola was, again, another massive eye-opener because Angola was the current world champions at the time. And obviously with me, my only experience being playing in the English league, as I mentioned, there was a level of skill and physicality that I was used to. So, when we played against Angola, I was just like, I can't believe that there are teams around the world that are this good. Do you know what I mean? And, I didn't play in the Angola game, but I was so proud of my mates, my teammates, the staff who was with us and everything, because as I said, this was at the time the best team in the world. Do you know what I mean? And we took them all the way through to extra time, and unfortunately ended up losing to a goal in extra time. But that was almost like a turning point for the England national team because all the staff are volunteers. We all have jobs and everything. Some of these teams like Turkey, Poland, stuff like that, they are full-time professional paid athletes. Do you know what I mean? So for us to prove to ourselves that we could compete with these professional teams, like I say, it was a bit of a turning point for us really because we'd proved to ourselves that we could do it. So although it was at the time a bit disappointing to go out in the round of 16, it was something we can be really proud of because, like I say, we're a charity at the end of the day, the England amputee football team, and to compete with professional teams is unreal, I think.
Absolutely. The first game you lost 1-0 to America, and then you won the next two. You won 3-0 versus Indonesia, and you won 2-3 against Argentina. Now, of course, when you played Argentina, you said that was a really big physical battle that you had. It was different to what you expected. But what was that like, though, to step onto the pitch and make was it the debut or was it the game before?
The game before was my debut, so the 1-0 to USA, I didn't play in that. And then the 3-0 to Indonesia, that was my debut. I came off the bench. And, like again, I almost couldn't believe it was happening. I could believe it was happening, but the timing was just so like I'd literally gone from never playing this sport before in my life to like 18 months later being at a World Cup. Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah, and then obviously the feeling in Turkey, because Turkey is probably the hot spot that you'd like to go as an amputee player, but probably be
yeah,
Turkey or Poland, right?
yeah.
What was that feeling like? Because I know the Turkish fans, again, with the amputee game, are so big and keen to go and support the clubs and countries.
Yeah, definitely. And there's kids asking you for pictures and autographs and everything. Do you know what I mean? Which we're not used to at all here, which is a crazy experience because it shows you that the level that this sport should be at, really. Do you know what I mean? I'm not saying that we should all be celebrities for playing amputee football, but I think when it comes to like fundraising and stuff like that, I think it's a difficult position to be in, having to fundraise to go and play for your country. First you have to work hard enough to be selected, and then you have to go out and do fundraising to pay for everything. Do you know what I mean? So when I saw the position that Turkey was in, it was crazy because the whole tournament, as I said, the opening game, semi-final and final was at professional stadiums, but the rest of it was held at Riva, which is the version of St George's Park. So, like, if you imagine St George's Park, they've just got pitches everywhere. That's what it was like at Riva, and you've got all these nations playing. There's so many games going on at the same time and stuff. So to see the level that Turkey have took amputee football to, it makes you a little bit jealous, really, because you feel like it should be at that level in England as well.
Yeah, definitely. But maybe that could be why as you mentioned, you are a charity. So we're going to talk about the time where you had to go on national television and ask to be
Yeah,
funded for Euro 2024, which is crazy in both ways. But also, we have to remember that the FA used to have amputee football on their radar, on their cards, and then they
yeah.
kind of got rid of it, and then it got set up as a charity. Would you say that's why? Because there's no funding from central government?
I think that massively helps because I think, um, firstly, I'd like to say I don't know why the funding was pulled.
Yes.
Literally, I really don't have a clue. So I'd be lying, I'd be speculating if I said so. But I do feel like if we had the backing of, say, the FA, I think that would be massive for our sport. Not only funding, but in my opinion, we would then have access to like professional football players like Marcus Rashford and Harry Kane, and you know, players who could almost shine a light on us. So, like in Poland, Robert Lewandowski is the amputee football ambassador. So you can imagine how famous Lewandowski is. So you can imagine the publicity that he brings to amputee football in Poland. Do you know what I mean? Whereas I feel like if we had that, if we had top flight athletes fighting our corner, then that would really help us with publicity and stuff. And I feel like that would be made a lot easier if we had connections to the FA and stuff.
Definitely, I think it's kind of a no-brainer, if you like, for the FA to kind of hop on board with the whole amputee national team side of things. But obviously, you don't want to take it away because all of you guys are so close-knit, and I think with the FA, you'd kind of lose that connection a bit more. But, I think you lot will be
Yeah,
open to it. I'm not involved in it whatsoever, but I'd like to see
yeah.
that happen for sure. The Nations League, then, the second major tournament that you played in between the World Cup and the Nations League, what happened? Because obviously you're going to play some build-ups to these games in terms of friendlies. There was a managerial change. Talk us through the managerial change as well, because that's something huge for a national team.
Yeah, so we came back from the World Cup in October 2022, and as I've previously mentioned, Scott Rogers was the head of technical, and Owen Coyle, who was the head coach, he left to go into a professional position. I think it was Queen's Park in Scotland he went to, and Scott Rogers took over as the head coach, which we was all thrilled about because um, although amputee football is very similar to regular football, there are little bits of specialism in it, sort of thing. So to know that Scott was taking over, he already knew us all. He already knew how we played. He already knew, the way we ran things, sort of thing, and the way we play our game. So we was all thrilled when Scott took over, but he didn't have long really because he took over in January 23, and then the Nations League was in June 23. So by this time, I was out of that limbo mode where, how I mentioned before the World Cup, I was in the next gen squad. I remained in the first team then, which I was incredibly proud about. But it was a lot of hard work in such a short space of time, really, to get ready for the Nations League. But we did it.
Yeah, and let's talk about the tournament. You won against all the odds, but to be called up now by the new manager, you were called up before, so it's the
Yeah.
second call up, but the first time under Scott. What was that feeling like again? Was the emotions just as high?
I think the emotions was just as high because when I went to the World Cup, as I mentioned, I was called up really late, and my game time was minimal, really. And not that I'm moaning about that, because I've always said to all the staff, I totally understand the journey I'm on, and I understand that my game time will come as so does my experience and stuff. But it was kind of the emotions was just as high, but it was kind of a bit like, right, I'm here now, I've got to stay here. Do you know what I mean? So I just carried on working hard and stuff, and then of course, yeah, I was called to the Nations League.
What a tournament that was for England. You won against all the odds. Beat Poland, Turkey, and Spain. And let me just say, Turkey hadn't lost in open play since 2014. And those
Yeah,
three are the teams, and Spain as well, they're the teams that were all trophy holders, and they are the top dogs in the amputee game. They are the creme de la creme, if you like. Everyone wants
yeah.
to play in those countries, against those countries for really good experiences. And what on earth happened in that tournament? You won.
I know it's crazy, and as you've just mentioned with Turkey, the only game of football they lost since 2014 was the World Cup final in 2018 on penalties. That's the only game of football they lost since 2014. So to go out and beat them ourselves, like it was again like the Angola game. It was more evidence for us to show that we can hang with these teams, sort of thing. And like I say, I think that's an incredible thing to say, considering we're not professionals. I mean, we try and act like professionals and stuff, but there's only so much you can do with not as much money. Do you know what I mean?
So what was the preparation like going into it then? Because as you mentioned, Poland, Turkey, possibly Spain would have had a lot more preparation going into it being professional setups. The England national team, not so much. So what was your idea going into this tournament? Scott's first tournament as the manager, and obviously your second call-up.
So we kind of didn't change much really in them first 6 months. So them first 6 months from Scott taking over, obviously he implemented his own ways and stuff, but we tried to keep things as similar as they was moving forward, because like I said, we didn't have much time really. We only had 6 months, and with it being the first ever Nations League, no one knew what to expect really. And obviously we've played Turkey and Poland many times before, so there was an element of, we knew what them teams was going to bring. And the same with Spain. Spain actually knocked England out of the Euro 2021 quarter final, so the last time we played Spain was very difficult. But although we knew these teams very well, we didn't know what to expect from the tournament, because it was the first ever Nations League, you know what I mean? So the format was new, you know, the way the games were set up was new. So it was kind of a bit of an uncertainty thing, really. But we never set out to win the Nations League. Obviously we wanted to win it, but that wasn't our goal. Our goal was kind of to stick to our process of what we'd been doing and the things that we'd been practicing. Success for us was implementing them things that we'd learned. Do you know what I mean? So although we was thrilled to win it, we never actually set out to win it.
Absolutely, but obviously winning it would have been. Well, obviously, he did win it. So, like, what was the
Yeah.
feeling like in that final? The step up in on foreign soil again to go to the final with the expectation of not even getting anywhere near that as far as you did, and then to go in the final, to go and win the final. What was the whole build up like? Getting to the ground, meeting the fans.
I think it was unreal because it was in Krakow in Poland, so there was lots of Polish fans there. Do you know what I mean? And the Turkish always bring a good set of fans, but it was almost like you was behind enemy lines, sort of thing. And it's funny in them tournaments because obviously the Nations League, there was only four teams involved in each group. We was Group A, but it's a funny situation to be in because the first game, England v Turkey, Poland was rooting for us because everyone wants Turkey to lose, because obviously they're the best. And then obviously when we're then playing Poland, then Poland are not rooting for us, you know what I mean? So it's quite a funny situation to be in, but I love it. Like, honest to God, I'll just love it.
Would you rather go into a tournament then as the underdogs, which you did there, or would you rather go in as the team that kind of need to do this for a certain reason?
I think personally, I know we've not spoke about the current Euros, yeah, Euro 2024 we've just come back from, but I feel like we performed better going in as the underdogs than we did going in as the favourites, do you know what I mean? So we went into Euro 2024, just gone past in June, and we went into that tournament as the number one ranked team after winning the Nations League. So personally, I feel like we thrive off that underdog label sort of thing, but you never know. You can't say for certain, but that's just my opinion.
Of course, but we're going to talk about the Euros in a moment.
Yeah,
Let's talk about the time the trophy got stolen of the Nations
yeah,
League. And you told me this story before. It's a very
yeah.
funny one, so go ahead and tell us what happened.
So, as I said, the Nations League was England amputees' first major trophy in 34 years, and no one let it go. We was taking it in turns, carrying it through the airport and stuff like that. And then when we got back to Manchester Airport, as staff was I'm not slagging staff off, but staff took charge of the trophy because players couldn't be trusted. And then what had happened is as they was loading all the stuff into the boot of the car, they've left the trophy by accident. And then as they've drove off, someone has found the trophy and took the trophy. But by the time they'd got home and realised, they was phoning Manchester Airport, they was phoning the police, and this trophy was just gone. And as I said to you earlier, it wasn't like stolen, and like no one broke into anyone's house and stole it that way, but someone did find the trophy and chose not to return it. But eventually, Manchester Airport got CCTV footage of the person who found it and traced him down through the registration on the car, and we did get it back eventually, which was good.
How did they get it back? Did the guy just take it back to his house, or they had to go and knock on the door, say, please
Yeah,
give
the
it back?
police the police went and turned up at his house. Yeah.
That must have been something then, and what a relief that would have been to get this
Yeah,
trophy back. Because God knows what would have happened if you didn't get it back. So I'm sure there would have had to been another trophy made, compensation
yeah,
paid, etc. Euro 2024. This tournament for me is one that I, of course, watch because having spoke to Thomas and to Scott, it was a big moment for the country and for me as well to get deeper into another side of the game. As Thomas mentioned on another podcast that I watched, amputee football is the third most popular sport. It's men's, then women's, then amputee football. So it's a really big sport in the game. Let's talk about the preparation in Euro 2024 because you had a training camp only a few weeks before you went to
yeah.
Euro 2024. And it was just focused on Georgia because Scott said you need to go a game at a time. Don't focus about anything else apart from Georgia.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's what worked well from the Nations League. So when we went into the Nations League, although we knew that we would be playing three games, Turkey, Poland, Spain, we spent the last camp focusing solely on Turkey. So I think when we went into the Euros, you know, don't fix it if it's not broke, do you know what I mean? So we went into the Euros 100% concentrating on Georgia. And then, like you say, we was taking every game as it came from there. But, you know, I know they said it shouldn't affect us and stuff like that, but I think it was a really difficult time leading up to the Euros and stuff because, as you mentioned, with funding and stuff like that, we had to go on telly asking for funding and stuff like that, which was quite a cool experience, by the way, if you don't mind saying. But, we shouldn't be in a position where we have to do that, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, I watched that, and you were all sitting on the big sofa. I think they had to get
Yeah,
like an extended sofa
yeah,
because of how many of you there were, and
yeah.
you had to go ahead and talk to the public. And by the time you left the interview room, if you like, the studio, you got the money that you needed to be able to go to the Euros. What was that like then to get onto the radio? Did they contact you? Did you have to go around contacting them?
So it was actually, I think it was the Daily Mail got in contact with us and they did a piece on us and they did like an article, a double page spread in their newspaper about us. And then someone from ITV this morning seen it and they got in touch with us and they was like, we'd really like to help you. So they invited us onto this morning. And yeah, that's basically how we got onto that.
But £30,000 though sounds like a lot of money, but obviously that was the
Yeah,
bare minimum
yeah.
which the country or the charity needed to be able to take you all to the Euros without any problems. To go to do that to the public, how was there a strategy that you needed to go and tackle to go and get this funding?
It was basically just like, so we'd made a GoFundMe and we was trying to publicize that as much as we could, all sharing it on our own social medias, and England was pushing it on their social medias and stuff, but it wasn't really going nowhere. So it was kind of a bit like it was the right place, the right time when This Morning invited us on. Do you know what I mean? Because as you just said, I think it was something like £2,000 we'd raised over 2 months, and then we went on This Morning and raised 36 grand in 2 hours. Do you know what I mean? So I don't think anybody could have predicted how well that This Morning was going to do for our GoFundMe, but it's just crazy.
Had that not happened, right, and this is obviously a bit optimistic, no one really knows. If you didn't get the funding to go to the tournament, what would you, as a setup, would you have gone to the FA to kind of demand that you should have gone to the Euros? How would that have all panned out?
Yeah, I don't know. If I'm entirely honest, I don't know what would have happened, but I always openly said to everyone that when we were struggling for funding and stuff like that, I said it'd have been a disgrace if we didn't go to the tournament. Do you know what I mean? Because as I mentioned, we went into the tournament as the number one ranked team, and like we almost wasn't going to be there. Do you know what I mean? So, I really don't know what would have happened, but thankfully we got there in the end.
So the 6-0 win versus Georgia set you lot up
Yeah.
perfectly. You didn't start that game one over the Euros, and you played in the same stadium. You know what? Yeah, I really liked it because you were in a very similar camp. You were sharing a hotel with, I believe it was, was it Scotland and the Netherlands?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, and Poland as well.
And Poland. And you were sharing this hotel. You had a nice setup. To go on internationals like that and have a hotel, have a pitch that you go and play on. By the way, the stadium was really cool. I liked it a lot.
Yeah.
What was that like to go over to France, to have all these facilities and just live the life of a professional for the week?
It was crazy, really, and it's stuff that you live for. Do you know what I mean? It's stuff that, like, as I said earlier, I know it sounds really cliche, but it's the stuff that you dream of. Do you know what I mean? Like, we've all just watched the men's at the Euros, and Anthony Gordon falling off his bike and stuff like that. Like, and the team trying to manage downtime and stuff like that. So for us to be in a similar situation where, because we was in the middle of nowhere, by the way, there wasn't like any shops you could just nip to or anything. So there was an element of us having to manage our downtime and stuff. But it's I quite like the routine of being away with the national team because you get up, you have a meeting, go for breakfast, travel to the stadium. I kind of like that regimented stuff. Do you know what I mean? I think when you're with a team, obviously, if you was on holiday on your own, you'd be. I wouldn't like the routine then. Do you know what I mean? But when you're with the national team, I think it's really good, like all being together and all having that one goal in mind and that shared goal. I think is really important.
What was the downtime consisted of? Was there PlayStations being bought? Was there stuff you had to occupy yourself with there?
Yeah, there was not much really going on, but Thomas Atkinson, he always brings his Xbox. He's kind of like the Xbox guy, so there was like FIFA tournaments going on and stuff like that. And as I mentioned, there was no shops, so everyone was betting money on who's going to win what game. And then we held our own Euros on the FIFA, so we'd set up our own tournament, and that was really good. But it was just things like swimming. There was a pool on site, so we'd have like staff would take us in the pool and put us through like nothing strenuous, but they'd put us through like a couple of exercises and stuff like that. And yeah, it's just finding silly games to play. Penank, I think it was called, like French Bulls game, was playing soccer, things like Platonk, yeah.
Who won the FIFA tournament then? Because that is a great, I think, a good idea to bring a team together.
Yeah, so we'd played the FIFA tournament in. Have you ever watched the Darts Premier League?
I have, and I do like the idea of that.
So do you know how they play a league format, and then the top four go through into like semi-finals and final? We played a league format, and Thomas and the sports psychologist, Dr. Ian Cook, because we'd played pairs. Thomas and Ian won the league format, and then Lou Mayers, the strength and conditioning coach, he won the knockout format. So there was a member of staff who won both things, which is a bit, we'd let ourselves down there, like now I say it out loud, but
Well, I mean, that's a really cool idea. Doing the tournament, that's kind of like the new Champions League format that we're going to see this upcoming season. The season's actually already started for the Championship sides.
Yeah,
For Watford, they have kicked off against Millwall, so best of luck to them.
yeah.
England 3, Netherlands 0. Game 2, you didn't start that game either. You mentioned that you were on a journey by yourself to go and, fulfill your ambitions of a footballer in the amputee game. Were you disappointed to not start any of the 3 group games?
Yeah, in a way, but I never voiced that I was disappointed. This is actually the first time that I have voiced that I was disappointed because I'm never going to go and moan about my game time and stuff because, as I say, I know I'm on a journey and, as we go, because what I thought to myself is that if I had chance to start the games, it would have been the easier games in the group stage. Do you know what I mean? So I was a little bit disappointed, but like I said, I didn't. That's not that like, oh, I was disappointed with Scott. I was disappointed with staff because, as I say, I fully understand the journey I'm on, but I didn't mourn. I didn't do nothing because I do believe that like in time my rewards will come, and as we keep going through these games, I started more important games than that one. Do you know what I mean? So I was right to not mourn because that's one thing I've always said is that like. I understand where I'm at. I understand where I'm going. If we're having the same conversations in 5 years' time, then fair enough. I'm doing something wrong. Then do you know what I mean? But like I say, I've played three club seasons. I've played in this sport, and I've been to 3 major tournaments. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm still relatively new to this sport, and I've got a lot to learn.
Absolutely. We're going to talk about your time at Everton after this tournament. The next game, England 1, Italy 0. Again, 3 clean sheets out of 3. Thomas doing his job between the sticks. But you didn't start this game either. However, you got through in style.
Yeah, Italy are a really good team as well, So how England won Group A of the Nations League, Italy won Group B of the Nations League. So next year, Italy have been promoted to the same Nations League as us. So we knew that Italy was going to be a difficult game. We knew that it was all going to be difficult games because we'd not played Netherlands in years, so we didn't know what to expect from them. You know what I mean? And there was all games that we was confident in going in that, we was confident we was going to win. But to get 3 clean sheets as well, it's like, that's as impressive as scoring 10 goals in 3 games. I think. Do you know what I mean?
Especially against really good sides. I mean, if you focus a whole training camp on Georgia, to beat them 6-0 is something because you focus so much time on this one nation. And then obviously the Netherlands and Italy being a really good team that they are. What I really liked, one of the top moments that I had, watching and keeping track of the tournament that England were obviously in, is the team visited a local French school ahead of the game against France. I really like that. What did you talk to the kids about? And, was this already pre-planned? Was it just a thing at the last minute?
It was already planned that we would go to a school and do a talk and stuff, but it's something that I don't mind getting involved in because it raises awareness about the sport and stuff, doesn't it? And I always say that, being selected for your country is more than just on the pitch. Do you know what I mean? So when you get given a duty to do, I don't mind getting involved and doing it. But they was just basically asking us about the rules of the sport, who we play next, who we've already played, that sort of thing. But, thank God the kids spoke English because I can't speak a word of French. Do you know what I mean? So,
well, I can't speak a word of French either, so I wouldn't have been any better.
Yeah.
What would have been really cool, though, I think, is if those kids have some sort of opportunity to go to these matches kind of on a prepaid basis, if you like. I think that would have been really cool to get more support. And, I don't think they should have asked the question of, who have you played, who haven't you played? Because you're playing France on the following day. So I wish that they could have gone and experienced that, even though you did win 3-0. So talk to us through that game, 3-0 in the quarterfinals against France.
Again, we knew it was going to be a difficult game against France because, we was in the home ground, wasn't we? And again, behind enemy lines sort of thing. And that's another thing about, like, not having funding. Every time we play, we're playing in the country. Do you know what I mean? Whereas if we had enough funding, we could bring these teams over here, and then we could have that home advantage. Do you know what I mean? So that's another thing that is a bit crap about having no funding. But like I said, the French fans were singing. We knew it was going to be a difficult game, but again, 3-0, 3 goals and a clean sheet was quite a convincing win, really.
Another clean sheet. Thomas must have been absolutely gassed, right?
Yeah. Thomas is incredible, but not only Thomas, because we've got like two of the best goalkeepers in the world as well. Because Kieran Lambourne, who is um, another goalie for England, he's incredible, and it's almost like a flip of the coin sort of thing. You know what I mean? Which one? You're not disappointed if any of them keepers start behind you. So.
When does the team get announced then? Is it do you, in the meetings that you have in the morning? Because obviously the tournament isn't as long as what the able-bodied Euros is. I think that's about a
Yeah.
month. With you, it's about, was it just over a week, or it was a week?
Yeah, a week, yeah.
And you've gone to France. You play a game near enough every day. Every day, apart from when you after the group stage, there's a day in
Yeah.
between, etc. What is that like then to get the team news announced to you? Is it in these team meetings? Is it just a text? How does it happen?
Yeah, so as I said, with the routine and the regiment sort of thing, we're very close when we're away, and we do everything as a team, even down to eating, meal times. We'll go for breakfast, lunch, dinner together. But every morning before the game, we'd have a team meeting, and that was when the team was announced, literally every morning. There was a couple of times the night before he would say to us that this is the team that's going to start, sort of thing, but it was mostly in the morning in the team meeting.
And what is that feeling like to get selected, but then also to not get selected? Everyone wants to be selected and represent their team in an international tournament.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, I'm always disappointed to not be selected, but that's not me mourning, because I always said the same to everyone. I think I'm here to play football at the end of the day. Do you know what I mean? So if I wasn't disappointed to not be selected, then I think there's something wrong there as well. Do you know what I mean? If you're happy to not be selected, then what you doing there anyway? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like I said, my outlook has always been just to be ready when called upon, sort of thing. And there's been, as I mentioned, those games like the Georgia game, the Netherlands game, where I thought, oh, I wish I'd have started that game, but I didn't let that element of disappointment get to me, sort of thing.
What was very disappointing, and this obviously from a fan's point of view and myself, going into this tournament as the favourites, but then at half-time you were winning 1-0 versus Spain in the semi-finals, but then obviously losing 2-1. And you mentioned disappointment, you've hinted at it in this tournament, going in as the favourites to go and win it. What was that like to go ahead and be ahead at half-time? What was the feeling at that break?
I think because we'd kept so many clean sheets, and that is something that we pride ourselves on. We pride ourselves on our defensive displays, really. And to go in at half time at 1-0, it was almost a bit like job done sort of thing. Do you know what I mean? And I think, if I'm entirely honest, I think we took our foot off the gas. But at half time, it was kind of a bit like we've already won sort of thing. Do you know what I mean? And I think. I don't think we looked past Spain, but we did in a way. Do you know what I mean? Like at half time, I don't think going into the game we looked past them. I think at kick-off, I think we did really well. I think it was just at half time when we went in 1-0. I think we kind of took our eyes off the prize. You know what I mean?
We mentioned that the recognition for amputee football could be greater, but we respect how great it is currently, and I'm sure it will become even better in the next few years. When I was watching all the streams, because obviously I was watching it throughout, my work week or whatever it would have been.
Yeah.
And I just loved it, seeing 300 people watching, 200 people watching.
Yeah.
When's the Spain game? When's the Scotland game? I really like that because it brings a community together with these teams. I'm going to be honest with you. I didn't watch Ukraine play. I didn't watch the other teams play. I wish I did, because it would have made the tournament for me even better to understand these teams, because you never know. I could be interviewing them in a few years' time. You never know.
Yeah.
2-1 then was the final score. What was that feeling like? Did you know at halftime that, or during the game, that the foot has been taken off the gas a bit?
I don't think we did it purposely. And like I say, I'm not saying, oh, this is exactly what happened. But I think subconsciously, I think we did take our foot off the gas, you know what I mean? And it really was heartbreaking, because it was literally the last kick of the game. I mean, obviously they equalised, but I don't think we ever believed enough. Do you know what I mean? I don't think we truly believed, if you know what I mean, which is sad, really. But that's the way sport is sometimes, isn't it?
Third place, would that have been good enough? I mean, obviously that was the best that was offered, but going into a tournament as favourites. But could we just say favourites in the tournament is not really anything to go by, because
No.
you've still got Poland, you've still got these really good teams that are up there with you, with Turkey as well. You know, these amazing teams that are equally, if not sometimes better than each other. You know, they're all fighting to be the top spot. You lost 1-0 in the third place playoffs. Was that disappointment for the country?
Yeah, I think it was really. I think, if I'm entirely honest, I don't think we'd got over the Spain game, do you know what I mean? Because, like I said, we'd literally lost the semi-final of the Euros, and then the next morning we was playing for third and fourth, do you know what I mean? And I think, you know, everybody wants to win, but I think once we'd got over that semi-final, I think a bronze medal would have been quite nice, actually. I think that would have changed our outlook on things, but it didn't, and unfortunately, going back to the belief thing, I don't really think. I think we was heartbroken, and again, I know I've said a lot of cliche things, but I do really think we was heartbroken by that semi-final of Spain, and we didn't get over it.
The 2026 World Cup then is something that you can look forward to, knowing that I'm sure Scott will still be in charge. I'm sure the majority of the young players, Thomas, will still be there, etc.
Oh, do you not know Scott's left now?
Like, really?
Yeah, do you not know?
No, I didn't see that.
No,
when was that?
He's stepped down. He's stepped down as head coach.
Oh, so what would his role be now? Has he completely left the setup?
No, so he's still involved in the charity, and he's still going to help us to find funding and stuff like that. And you know, he's still going to help with like the committee side of things and stuff. But he's stepped down as head coach now.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
That shocked me, because I've not seen that anywhere on social media. I literally saw an interview yesterday with Scott saying that he was the head coach of England. So, wow,
he's still involved. He's, like I say, he's still involved, but he's not actually the head coach now.
So, is there any rumours as to who could be the next head coach?
No. So Mark Dolan, he was the assistant head coach, and he's also my coach at Everton. He has took over as interim coach for the meantime, but we're not really exactly sure what's going to happen now.
Well, let's talk about Everton then. You are an Everton player, and that again is probably the best. That is the creme de la creme of England's amputee sides. You won the FA Cup in 2023, right?
Yeah.
Against 4-2 win against Portsmouth. It was probably a big derby in your opinion. In my opinion, two very good teams going at it. Portsmouth were in the final for a long, long time. You know, they kept trying to battle it out, and they finally beat you this year. But let's talk about the time that you won. The FA Cup, the most prestigious tournament of them all. What happened on that day?
I don't know. I think that was like one of the best days of my career, really. And obviously, representing England and winning the Nations League and stuff is like, again, proudest things I've ever achieved. But with the FA Disability Cup, you know, I played the whole 50 minutes of that game, and I had involvements in the goals, and like I really enjoyed myself, and I really had fun. Do you know what I mean? So I feel like I'm not putting down the Nations League or anything, because just to be part of that squad, and I firmly believe that it's not just the players on the pitch that win the games, because, you know, the subs who have trained with them for months before it, and, you know, like everything comes together, doesn't it? But, you know, there was just something special about playing that whole game and being involved in goals. And
when you finally won it, what was the feeling like at the full-time whistle? Because I think everyone would want to win a final, 2-1 or a 3-2, a closer score. It was 4-2, still quite close. Yeah. But when the full-time whistle was gone, or when it was kind of getting close and you kind of had a feeling that this was it, what was that feeling like?
It was kind of like a relief more than anything as well, because the season before, we'd had an awful season at Everton, and I don't even think we won a game. I think we drew a couple. But, you know, we literally went a whole season winless. So to come back the year after, we did make a couple of signings. We took Sean Jackson and Reece Ramsden from Manchester City. But, you know, for the rest of us players to have all stuck together, and then Mark Dolan, who I just mentioned, who's going to take over as interim head coach at England, he took over Everton. And, you know, to turn our seasons around literally from not winning a game to winning a league and FA Cup double was incredible.
For the new amputee teams that are coming through, whether it be, for example, Watford, I don't think they have an amputee team. A lot of English league team clubs, I think a lot of the Premier League clubs don't have an amputee setup, which is a shame. For the new teams that are coming through, do you see in the next few years like a wider division being played out between all sorts of clubs in all corners of the country?
Hopefully, I'd love to see more teams involved because we actually play in the Polish league ourselves. So I play for Warta Poznań in Poland, and very similar to our explained our FIFA tournaments, they play their league format the same. So they've got 8 teams in their league, and then halfway through the season, they split the team into almost like a Premiership and a Championship, and then um, you've got 2 divisions from one division of football, and I think that'd be really good in England because we do have teams around the country like Newcastle, Brighton, West Brom. We do have teams like that who was once involved in the amputee league who have just had to fall out of the league because they've not got enough players to field the full squad. Do you know what I mean? So I think once participation rises, then I'd love to see as many teams as I can in England.
You mentioned that you play in Poland as well. What's that like? Do you get the full professional experience over there?
Yeah, it's crazy playing in Poland because, like I said about Turkey, you've got kids asking you for pictures and autographs and everything, which is crazy. And you're playing like the best teams in Europe. Do you know what I mean? Because just the same as in England, the Everton and Portsmouth are full of national team players. It's the same over there. You're playing against some of the best teams in Europe, and they have players coming from Morocco, Spain. Do you know what I mean? So in England, we don't have that pulling power to say to players, come and play for Everton. So we can't really go and sign any foreign players because we've got nothing to offer them. Do you know what I mean? Whereas because they're a professional setup, they're literally attracting players from every country in Europe.
The 2024 FA Cup final disappointingly lost 2-3 to Portsmouth. Thomas finally won the FA Cup, and he was so delighted with that. To go ahead and play against a good mate in Thomas and good
Yeah.
mate in the other team, what's the feeling like? Are you messaging them before in the run up to the final, or do you just keep the phone shut away from them and try and focus on winning?
Yeah, kind of just keep away from them sort of thing. And obviously, we are all friends and stuff. And like, if I would never ignore them if a situation arises, like if we see each other before the game at the car park or whatever, we will speak to each other and stuff. But I don't really like texting and wind up games and stuff like that because you never know when it's going to come back to bite you. Do you know what I mean?
You know what? I think I'd like to do a bit of both. I think I'd like to sit back
Yeah,
sometime and just, but then I'd also like to, give it a bit if you're the favourite to go and win it. But
yeah.
obviously that's bad sportsmanship, so maybe I wouldn't do that.
But do you know what? Like, I just want to put it on record and say
Yeah.
that, like, obviously at the time, I hated the guts when they just beat us. Do you know what I mean? But I'm buzzing for Thomas because you watched the Spain game. I feel like Thomas needed a really positive performance after that to lift him back up. So I'm really made up for Thomas. There's a couple of other players as well. Nathan Fisher, the centre back for Portsmouth. He was actually not selected for the Euros, which was very difficult because he was dropped. He was in the first team, and then he was struggling with injuries and stuff, and then effectively he was dropped from the England team and didn't travel to the Euros. So I know that must have been a difficult time for him. So for him to put in a performance and win the FA Cup literally a week or two later, whenever it is, like I say, we are all friends at the end of the day, and there are players that I'm made up for.
Of course. Now, Everton have done really good things in the community. I like the way that they do their stuff. Although I'm a Liverpool fan, we've got to put that aside.
Yeah,
You were the leading face of Everton's inclusion kit, and it was a really
yeah,
cool looking kit. What was
yeah.
that feeling like to represent a really big club in the Premier League? Of course, around the world, they've got worldwide fans. To go ahead and represent them, was it because they were trying to push the amputee game out there, or were they just trying to build an inclusion for everyone?
I think it was more of an inclusion for everyone sort of thing, and because there was other people there on the day doing photo shoots with me who had like different disabilities, different genders, different sexualisms, and there was a lot of varied people there. So it wasn't just specifically for amputees, but as I said about going to the school doing the talk, I'm quite happy to. I know not everyone's as confident as other people are. This so like, especially at Everton and even at England to a degree, when you're doing like, which is another crazy thing, like after the game interviews and stuff like that, which you don't get in England in the league because it's such a small league, really. Like, but I don't mind doing the talking and stuff because I feel like people need to talk about it to raise the awareness that we need to help us in the long run. Do you know what I mean? So I'm quite happy to be involved in stuff like that, and it's quite significant really, because when we had the photos took at Goodison Park, it'll be gone soon, won't it? So
Yes, for sure. And I like that the new stadium looks quite cool. I do like it.
yeah, it does. Yeah,
It seems quite small, but it's actually a really big capacity. So they'll be hosting, I think it's the 2028 Euros or World Cup Euros it'll be.
yeah,
You're also a content creator and a dad of three. How do you
yeah.
balance all of this?
I don't sometimes, if I'm honest. Sometimes I struggle, but I think it's things that you enjoy, though, isn't it? Like I said, I enjoy talking about amputee football. I enjoy raising an awareness that's needed and stuff. So I think the more you enjoy things, the easier it is to balance them.
Where is the 2026 World Cup?
We don't actually know yet. So there's been a few rumours of it being Panama,
Panama.
South American based, but
Whoa.
we're gonna have to wait and see. It's not officially been announced.
Do you like those kind of tournaments where they are really far away from home?
Yeah, well, it would be my first one. So there have been World Cups in Argentina, and obviously before the ban, amputee football has been played in Russia. Russia was actually a very good amputee football team, like multiple world champion and stuff. But of course, with everything that happened in sports and stuff. So when my teammates tell me these stories about playing in the World Cup in Mexico, Argentina, stuff like that, it is something that I would like to experience, because I have done a lot of traveling now, but it's all been Europe based. So, I would like to venture further afield.
When you retire eventually from international football, but also club football, what's the number one thing that you'd like to have achieved by then?
I think the number one thing that I would like to achieve is to leave the sport in a better place than it is now for us. So, like, we have a junior division, and there's literally kids from toddlers up until the age of 16. I think when it's their time to play for the national team, if they don't have to worry about awareness and funding and stuff like that, then I think that's the most important thing. Do you know what I mean? And I think just having fun. I'd love to say, I'd love to win a World Cup. I'd love to win a Euros. You know what I mean? But you can't really guarantee then, can you? So
This is where it gets a bit complicated, because obviously you're not attached or affiliated to the FA whatsoever.
no.
But for the Paralympics, is there still an option for any of you to represent Team GB?
So we would be eligible to represent Team GB in individuals events. So like sprinting, jumping, whatever our sport may be, we would be able to go and represent Team GB. I think it's just because amputee football isn't yet a Paralympic sport, then that's why we're not under Team GB, as we're not under the FA. Do you know what I mean? But I think it is something that we would like to see in the future, amputee football becoming a Paralympic sport. But as I said at the beginning of the conversation, I'm not really. I can't think of out worse than going out for runs and stuff. Do you know what I mean? So I don't think I'll be representing Team GB at Paralympics anytime soon.
Well, that's quite surprising that there's not even a Paralympian football available.
No.
I'm sure that's only going to be in the next few Paralympics until that comes into place, because that's crazy. Finally, let's build you a FIFA card then. So you're going to have a striker card, of course.
Yeah.
Pace. What would your pace be?
I'd like to say my pace would be about 80. I'm not the fastest, but I'm not the slowest.
How would you class yourself in the striker role? Is it like an advanced forward, a fox in the box? Is it the target man, number 9?
Yeah, I think. Do you remember Dimitar Berbatov?
Yes, I do.
My friends, because my name's Burbridge, my teammates sometimes joke and call me Berbatov. Do you know what I mean? But I think that's like the way I play football the best. Like almost with me back to goal. Sometimes I can receive the ball and play someone else in. I think first touch is one of my strongest attributes. But yeah, I'm never going to be like the fastest guy on the pitch. Do you know what I mean? But I'll always try my best.
Of course, that's the only thing that we can do, trying our best in everything that we do. Shooting, as a striker, the most important thing that you're probably going to need.
Yeah. I'm going to go for 87 shooting.
Nice. You mentioned passing because holding up the ball is actually a really difficult thing with a defender behind you, barging you in the
Yeah.
back. It can be quite a difficult thing. So passing then, short, long, how do you like to do your passing?
I think I like short passing more than anything. I like almost acting as a bounce player. You know, the ball can come to me and I can lay it off to someone else. But I think in amputee football, holding the ball up with someone on your back is a really important skill to have as a striker because, you know, especially when you've got the crutches, because you can hold the crutches out and make yourself wider so the defender can't get round you. Do you know what I mean? So I think that's a very important skill. But yeah, I'll take short passing over long passing any day.
And what would the rating be for the passing?
I'll go 80 again.
Dribbling. As a striker, maybe what you've just told us wouldn't be the most important thing.
No, I think dribbling wouldn't be the most important thing. I think very similar to mainstream football. I think dribbling is very important for wingers and stuff like that, and even defenders in amputee football because you've watched some amputee football now. We don't necessarily play because it's only seven aside. We don't necessarily have like a right back, a centre back, and a left back. It's if you're a defender, you're just a defender. Do you know what I mean? So I think driving out from the back and stuff's an important skill for us as a defender, but. You know, we're really lucky in England actually to have Jamie Tregascus and Reece Ramsden, two of the best wingers in the world, and we've got them both on either side for England. Do you know what I mean? So, if you watch them dribble, they're incredible.
And what would you put yourself as a dribbling then?
We'll go 80 again.
80 again! Oh my
Yeah.
word. It's a triple of 80s. Defending, of course, not the most important thing that you're going to need.
No. So listen, last Polish league fixtures. They played me at centre back. Thought I had a great game. Disaster class it was. We lost 4-0. I gave away a pen, so I'm going to go down to like 35 on defending.
That's been a bit harsh, I think. Come on.
No. 4-0 in your first game.
Well, you're not a centre back, so that's what you can put that game away.
No.
Physicality. Again, it's going to be needed when you've got a defender barging you in the back, hold up play. Maybe not at defence, but you need it.
Yeah, I'm gonna go for a confident 90 on physicality.
Well in. So I'm sure that card will be about 83, 84, putting yourself up there with some of the best that I've spoken to. Liam, what a pleasure it's been. We've spoken about all sorts, including a story where the Nations League trophy was stolen off you, representing in a World Cup, playing in Euro 2024, winning the Nations League, and so much more. Liam, what a pleasure it's been, and thank you for joining me.
No, thank you for having me, Jamie. But can I also just say quickly, if anybody actually wants to see the Nations League trophy, it's in the Museum of Football in Manchester, so you can actually go and there's like a display about us all and our route to winning it and that sort of thing. So if anyone does want to check it out, it is there. Amazing,
perfect. Thank you, Liam.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me.